Okay, start this meeting. There you go. We'll start by approving the minutes from December, since there was no meeting in January with no applications. So has everybody had a chance to look over December's minutes? Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are good. And I'll get these to you, Charlie. I need a pen. We've got 2 pens in this box here. And then do you want to start with the swearing in of the
Yes.
speakers?
Everyone signed in to speak. If you stand, raise your right hand, please.
Is it just for applicants speaking or speaking on behalf? Hold on to
Anybody.
Mm-hmm.
applicants.
Now we have.
Apologies.
You'll be the only one that puts all the information asked for on.
He's meticulous.
You all swear or affirm the statement you're about to make tonight to be the truth to the best of your information you believe. Thank you.
And then do we need to do anything with our new board members right now?
I've already put in the minutes that they
Okay.
were administered the oath before the meeting and
Okay.
they're ready to go.
Awesome, thank you. All right, with all that being taken care of, no applications for old, so go ahead and you get started with the new, Mr. Shirley.
The new.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, and welcome to our 2 new members, Ms. Walters, Mr. Emerson. I think you'll find we try to help people out as much as we can within the letter of the law, and we like to have a little fun with it if we can too. So feel free to ask me as many questions as you would like. Our Director Holden Fleming and Planner Elise is here as well, and Mr. Perkins is over there too. He's all right. So I'll get things started off. Our first application this evening is a variance application. It's the first one of the year. And it's a variance to reduce a 100-foot landscape buffer setback to 82 feet for the construction of a home. It's on 100 Nuthatch Trail. The zoning for this area is R1C PUD, which was a planned unit development. And it's just under an acre, 0.69 acres, a little west of Cynthiana Road, actually north rather. Here is the lot in question. Just to confirm our zone here, R1C, single family residential. So anytime we consider a variance, whether it be this application big or small, we look to KRS 100-243, Kentucky Revised Statutes, essentially beyond our local ordinances, govern and set the standards for what we can and can't do. Basically, we look to see for a few things, whether the requested variance arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the same vicinity or same zone, or if the strict application of provisions of the regulation would deprive the applicant of reasonable and full use of their property, or would create an unnecessary hardship on the applicant. And lastly, whether or not the circumstances are a result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of the zoning regs from which relief is sought. But most importantly, we also have to just say, if you're making the problem, I'm sorry, we can't grant you a variance. The official language basically being, board shall deny any request for a variance arising from circumstances that are the result of willful violations of said regulations by the applicant. So the buffer here in question, which they wish to encroach upon, is that red dotted line there. The footprint of the house as proposed is shaded in the blue area. I believe they're looking for just under 18 feet of relief, which would create an 82-foot remainder of that buffer in that area. This is a detail of the buffer as proposed on the plat of the development. As you'll see here towards the homes, there's actually 50 feet of open space before the plantings are to occur. The intention of the plantings is to create visual, sound, and safety barrier between the development as well as Cynthiana Road. and also highlighted the cross-section of US 62 as it fronts the development. As you'll notice, it shows that public right-of-way there varies, and I'll get a little bit more into that here in just a second. So the green dotted line here is the roadbed and/or center line of Cynthiana Road as it runs along the development. As you'll notice, it is much straighter than the red line above it. I presume that at some point when this development was platted and surveyed, Cynthiana Road has gone under some improvements and straightening and widening in not so distant past. And I would imagine as the survey was performed, the state right-of-way along US 62 is still designated as that kind of zigzaggy line where there was probably some curves and stuff before. So when it was first surveyed and platted, they adhered to those setbacks as standard from the right-of-way, which kind of created our little pinch point here as denoted by the green arrow. It kind of squeezes into that lot a little bit, making the shape a little different than the ones around it, which also shoved that landscape buffer a little further into the lot than I'm sure they thought would be good. And I will just say, and I'll go back for a second, I dug through all of our regulations. I could not find anywhere where this type of buffer was explicitly called out. Best I can tell, it was essentially drawn in there by the developers, probably during the process of, the planning commission process for review and development of this neighborhood. So it's somewhat a self-imposed restriction. And again, encroaching 18 feet or so into that 50-foot open space does not diminish the intention of the landscape buffer as it was designed. It's not affecting any of the plantings. Those are all still 38 feet away or so, something like that. My math is bad. I went to Scott County Schools. I think it's actually 32 feet. So yes, to end it all there, it seems like a self-imposed restriction that they're seeking relief from. And again, it's just under 0.7 acres in the R1C zone. There are no current regs that speak to this exact buffer, so there may have been regulations before that have since changed. Our sub-regs changed in, I believe, 2016, landscape buffer around the same time. So approval of the requested variance would not diminish the screening along Cynthiana Road, and the encroachment would only occur during the open space as shown. Overall, we are recommending approval of the requested variance, and these conditions of approval here, as you all will find, are pretty standard for our variance applications. No additional restrictions applied to them for any special case. And here's just an overview again. If y'all have any questions for me, I'd be glad to entertain them, or the applicant.
That's just the house itself, right?
The blue footprint there?
Yeah.
Yes,
There's
that
no
is the proposed
Right.
footprint of the home as supplied by the applicant. It still complies with all the setback regs for the development, all that good stuff.
Okay. Any other questions for Rick? No. Anybody here to speak for or against? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Richard Powers, homeowner at 102 Nuthatch, the adjoining property to this one. Couple of issues. As far as that landscape buffer goes, it's actually my understanding that landscape buffer actually exists for our safety coming in and out of the neighborhood in the approach to Cynthiana Road. So it's actually an uphill grade, and Cynthiana Road actually curves right around that area. So without that landscape buffer being present, you actually can't see any of the approaching cars coming in and around that neighborhood. So from the homeowner's perspective, we actually, you can actually have a real major visibility issue when you're coming in and out of the neighborhood. James Monroe's added, sorry, I have Parkinson's, so I get a little shaky, my bad.
That's okay.
There's been over, 100 homes added in that neighborhood, which has increased that traffic flow coming in and out of Cynthiana Road. Encroaching upon that landscape buffer, I believe, is a real huge hindrance. The other issue we have with a home going in that neighborhood, I believe you said something about, they'd always planned on building there. When we actually purchased our home, we were told that was unusable land, that James Monroe wasn't able to develop it and wasn't going to be, and that was one of the reasons why we actually chose that piece of property to start with. So adding this home not only loses our visibility, but also encroaches upon space that the HOA believed was going to be a part of their space.
Who communicated that to you, that it wasn't going to be usable?
That was James Monroe's representative at the time, which was Misty.
Well, Misty did it, but I'm sorry. Joy was part of the office that did all the paperwork, but between her and Misty that did the contract with us, said that was not usable land, that they were not going to build on that land because of the unusability of the land, and they wanted to use that as green space. That was going to be a place of HOA for the kids to play. So they played on our emotions with children. And they said, oh, yes, that's going to be maintained for children and green space, and you don't have to worry. You won't have a house beside you. I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm in the mortgage business. I get the real estate side of the business. I get that. And that was a big concern for me and my children. And they said, yeah, we got you. No problem. Well, we took them at face value. You told us that. We believed you. Now you're coming back to us and you're saying, yeah, forget what we said. We didn't mean that. We changed our minds. We want to make more money.
He's ran out of lots
We're
to build on.
greedy.
The neighborhood's almost complete.
That's how we feel as homeowners. This is supposed to be a playground for our children, a place for our kids to run about and have a place. We had planned on like putting, soccer goals up that we could take down and put up for our kids. Our kids are in soccer. It's a great space to play soccer.
And do you know what time around that was communicated to you?
In 2023, when we built the house.
April of 2023.
April 2023. When we bought the house, we signed the documents, we agreed upon it. It was in April of 2023.
We actually asked about purchasing that lot
To
as a
ensure
part of ours
that
to
it
make
wouldn't
sure
be
that.
developed.
And we were informed then by James Monroe himself that the lot was actually deeded to the HOA.
And no worries.
We found
No
out from the
worries.
HOA this past December. I actually went to the HOA board to actually find out what the truth of that was when he started bringing in gravel and things like that onto the lot. And we were informed by him in front of HOA at that point that no, he fully intended to develop that lot and the one at 101, which is across the road, which he hasn't asked for a variance for to encroach in that landscaping buffer yet, but I'm sure will.
And let me add on to that it's a downhill slope. It's, you come into the neighborhood, it's downhill slope. We had so much mud when we moved in, and landslide of coming into weather. They put up the silk lining, where we had it fenced off for our dogs.
He put up a 10-foot silt screen for the last 2 years as opposed to actually mitigating the erosion that's coming off that hill now that he actually wants to build on.
Our backyard is nothing but mud. It's nothing but mud. Our 16 by 24 foot patio that we put in to make a wonderful outdoor living space for us kids and friends coming over is nothing but a mud pit. And they have done nothing to mitigate that. Oh, those silk linings they put up? Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. It did nothing but make it a mud mess in our backyard. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And you take him saying, we're not going to do this to you. We're not going to build there. It's going to be a HOA space. Wonderful. That's, okay, well, let's get through this. Let's get through this season. It'll get better. It's not gotten better. This is our second winter that we've been there. Our second season. Maybe it'll be 3 years we've been there. It has gotten worse. The mudslide, the water downgrade, because at the slope is coming. So you're going to build another house when you told us you weren't going to do that. You're going to build another house. We're going to have all that construction, all that mudslide, all that rain off to destroy our backyard that you've already destroyed because you haven't set in place the right things to offset that. Our kids cannot play out back without mud everywhere.
But just to bring it back, we understand that
Sorry, I got on a tangent.
if you approve this or deny this, we understand he's going to build there regardless. If you approve it, he can just build a bigger house there and block the view. If you deny it, he's just going to build a smaller footprint house. So basically what we've come here for is to make sure that zoning and planning laws are there for a reason. They're there for visibility. Just because we can't see it on a flat one-dimensional plane doesn't mean that it's not there. But they exist for a reason. If you let somebody go for a variance, in this case, I promise you he's going to go for a variance on the one across the street. And then after that, the one down from that. And it's just going to continue to happen. So we made rules for a reason. If we're going to break them, there needs to be a really good reason. Building a bigger square foot house, to me, is not that reason. Like I said, he can still put a house there. We understand we got screwed from the start. That's fine. We get it. We fully understand that. Approving or denying is not going to prevent him from building a house. We totally understand that too. It's just a matter of, are you going to change the rules so somebody can build a bigger house and get more profit while endangering the welfare of the residents? That's all we have.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarification, was there anything that you had in official writing at the time of the purchase to say that?
we don't.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
I understand.
Just a side note, not even really
I got you.
part of this.
And we believed him, unfortunately.
Is there anybody else to speak on this? Okay, yeah, absolutely, sure.
Yeah, I can't speak for a lot of what was said because I wasn't part of any of those conversations. But I can speak for the original plat that was approved on 21's always called it a lot. It's never been designated HOA or anything. When you look at the plat, it spells it out pretty clear. That's public record. It's been there since it's been approved. I don't know where a lot of that come from, to be honest with you. A couple of things on the drawing that Rhett can side with me a little bit on that. I'm sure the drawing that I have, there's a couple things that we're proposing that it showed yeah, the footprint. You see we've added a third car garage onto that house for one thing. It's a long ways back from the entrance still, well within the guidelines, I'm sure. There is no parking on the right side of the street, coming into that whole street for the availability of traffic. We proposed a third car garage on this house plan to create more parking off the curb for the house. So there would be additional parking, so nobody would have to park in the street since it's no parking on the right-hand side of the road anyway. I can't, there's, outside of that, yeah, I can build a narrower house. Trying to keep the dynamics of the subdivision consistent and not make a goofy-looking little house in the one lot. Because yeah, it's right. We're going to build a house there. It's just I'm trying to make something that's consistent with the neighborhood, looks good, helps traffic, helps parking in the road and everything else, and keeps the continuity and the look of the neighborhood. Because we're proud of the way the neighborhood looks as it's being developed, and we just want to continue that. So the distances, the whole jagged line thing is really, it's kind of weird. As me and Rhett was talking about it originally when I first went to him on this. It's still I would say it's still well over 100 foot from the actual Cynthiana Road itself. There's already landscaping planted at the building line. That's small now, but will grow. None of that will be affected. This whole structure is going to be inside of all of that. There's nothing.
When you say there's landscaping, where is it?
There's landscaping inside the 50-foot building line right now. The
Okay.
first line to the right.
Okay.
There's already a whole row of landscaping planted for the whole neighborhood, and this is all well inside that.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
So what's your role with the company?
I'm the VP of construction.
Okay. Has there been any talk from actually the company to the people, like the next door neighbors there? Anybody else that lives there? I know they mentioned HOA earlier, so I don't know if the HOA's been active in
Yeah,
it or not.
I'm not part of the HOA. The HOA is
Right, I know,
active.
but
yes,
it's something as serious as us approving this for you to go ahead to do this. I would think that I would need to see somebody from the company reaching out to the homeowners that are going to be affected or may not be affected by it. I know statistically and what's written and what I've read in the packet, I know that we have everything we need to approve it. But from a standpoint of where I know people live there, it's gonna be built possibly anyways at some point.
Yeah, and the
If the
question-
surveys have been done with the land and all
Yeah,
that kind of
and
stuff.
the questions across the street, it doesn't apply to the lot across the street, the way the lot line falls, the buffer falls in and it's buildable, just for, to stay consistent with the rest of our plans. This one lot was the only one that had any issue, and it's just that.
I'm just
funky
wondering if
shape.
the company could reach out to the homeowners.
Yeah.
Like, what I'm hearing tonight is that some problems could be solved with listening more to what some of the people are going through directly impacted by it now, before it's even built.
Okay.
Because
And I-
who knows what's gonna happen once it's built, but there's already problems before it was built. So like, there's lost trust there because, and it has nothing to do with you, maybe somebody down the line, but there's lost trust there, so how do you begin to build that trust back?
Yeah, okay.
You know, you start opening up some type of line of communication. So I'm just saying, for me personally, when
I
it
mean,
comes
we've
to that
got,
time
my
to
understanding,
vote.
we've got a very active HOA, and I believe they've
Right.
been part of it and had some requests there before and everything else, and I'm not aware of anything that was never handled,
Right,
so.
okay, that's all I have.
No problem.
I think to that note, I think there was a notice requirement. I just want to ask staff here. I think I saw a few addresses listed there. Was there any comments received from anything mailed to those residents?
I had a call this afternoon, but they were just confused about the context. And once I explained it to them, they're like, oh, okay, that's not what I thought at all. But beyond that, I've had no phone calls, emails, or letters, anything of the sort.
Any chance I can ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Do that?
Yep.
So ourselves and our neighbor across the street were the two that received the notices. We actually went to the HOA. The HOA had no notice or anything like that. The HOA president, James Monroe, who's the vice president, they actually had to call him, and he's like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, don't worry about it. That was the response that HOA got back with me on before we decided to come to this meeting. Because we were worried about HOA representation. James Monroe, who's got this application, is actually vice president of HOA because he owns the majority of the lots right now still. So it's one of those deals where don't nobody know.
Right.
Thank goodness we got the letter still here. I just want to bring up maybe a pattern or a little histrionics. You said the plat you got from 2021, right? So approved 2021. We're sitting here at 2025. All the houses are done. Now we're working on this one right here. So you can't say you're always planning on building on that lot. You always knew that this lot had an issue. You've known that since 2021 by self-admittance. Now that you have pretty much outgrown your space and you ran out of dollars, now you're trying to squeeze in one last one. I just found that a little interesting.
Okay.
Expensive house.
I just wanted to clarify about notification. We do within a radius if the HOA or anybody else doesn't own a property within said radius. We don't necessarily go around every neighborhood and choose just their HOA to send notices to. Some don't have HOAs, some do. But the adjoining property owners or within a certain radius, whether it be here, county, or commission, is how we notify. So, and I believe that was included in your packet.
Next door.
Yes.
That's what we got.
Yes. Yeah.
I will just ask for clarification of the applicant. I believe the applicant said that they may be able to build on the lot without a variance. I wanted to just clarify that.
It's not that it's unbuildable, what we'd have to be buildable doesn't fall in line with anything else in the neighborhood. It would be a totally different looking house than the rest of the neighborhood.
Again, it's just that would fall at the discretion of the board here, whether or not that meets the intent of the variance process then. While the use of a single-family residence is an allowed use, nowhere in our code do we specify how large or, how much of a consideration should be made for garages or extra, square footage. And so, I do think that having had the conversation, it is important for that to be considered. Staff does stand by the original staff recommendation, though.
May I say something?
Sure.
If they go through the building of the home, what protection do we have based on the landslide, the mudslide that we have endured already? That if their little silk screen has
Right.
done nothing.
Yeah,
two offsets.
Yeah, that was one of the concerns that you brought up that I really don't know. Charlie, do you know
Well,
there's?
no
any-
protection from us.
Right.
We can't get
Yeah, I
involved
don't know.
in
Yeah.
private disputes. Your only protection there, well, wait a minute, let me think about that again. If there's a violation of their development plans and whatnot, then yes, we might have some, you know, able to put some kind of stick into that fight. But by and large, something between you and your developer is a private matter, and we can't get involved in private disputes. Now, on the other hand, if they were required to do certain things by their development plan or their subdivision plats and they didn't do it, well, then that might be something you could get involved in.
There've been violations on other homes, and I think it went to a different board. I think it went through a
Yeah.
different board. I know it's not.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I don't know what to do.
That was a horror movie, is what you're thinking about. And no, that went to the full commission, that dealt with a brand-new ordinance that we had that, I mean, thank goodness I wasn't involved in writing it, and I thought it was dreadful. And when it came time to enforce it, it certainly appeared in some sense like it should have applied, but then there was other language that took it out of there. It was just dreadful. Oh, we fought. Oh, it was awful. But that is just awful.
So yeah, so I don't know what to do about the mudsliding and things, but definitely something you should explore, elsewhere wherever you can. As far as the approval or denial here, the other thing you mentioned was visibility. I mean, if they were to put a house there, regardless of the size, I think there's enough visibility on traffic if you come to a stop sign there, looking left and right. Or were you concerned with the landscaping that's being put in for that?
No, there's actually a curb right there on Cynthia Road. So our house is the first. When we leave out of our driveway, as soon as we get parallel to our house, we can actually see around that curve that comes through.
Okay.
You can see it at the very start of that, but it actually curves pretty significantly right there. So that's our concern. Yeah, you can put a house there with the extra attached garage and the height that it's going to be probably 15 plus feet unless he does a second story on that garage. You're talking about a significant loss of visibility past that landscape buffer at that time. So I've walked the property, I've taken tape measures. I mean, I understand that the man's going to make $1. I get it. I really do, but just want to make sure it's responsible development and knowing that it just doesn't seem responsible.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to even speak up, but
I don't hate for you to speak
if we
up.
look at the state statute that authorizes us to hear variances, it requires us to consider three things. One is that the requested variance arises out of special circumstances not generally applicable to the area. Well, this really isn't special circumstances of any kind, it's the plat. Well, the plat that they provided and that we approved, so I'm not sure it really meets the special circumstance consideration. Strict application of the provisions of the regulations would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land. Well, they put the setback on their own plat. So I'm not sure how we're depriving them of reasonable use if that in fact was not fully intended. Apparently it was at least partially intended to be built on, but then why was the plat built so that virtually all or most of the lot is out of the buildable area? And then circumstances are the result of actions, or whether rather, circumstances are the result of actions by the applicant. Well, I mean, it's their plat. I'm not saying that it's not reasonable to want to develop that lot. I'm not so sure I fully agree, but I don't drive that thing, so, I don't know. I've gone by it 1,000,000 times, but it's not from their standpoint,
Yeah, I
not
don't
from
know the
their,
perspective
not from their
either,
home.
the exact perspective.
But it does drop off. There's no question about that. Again, I'm not so sure it's far enough, or rather not far enough back to give as much visibility regardless of this house. But the statute is what we're supposed to go by, and I'm not so sure the statute really authorizes us to do a variance. I'm not going to imply to anyone that we don't always, or rather that we do always stick strictly to the ordinance or to the statute, but this really doesn't come close to the statute. Usually a special circumstance is you've got a stand of trees, you've got an outcropping of rock, you've got a wet area, you've got things that they don't create that prevent them from reasonable use of the lot. And if we can give them a reasonable variance, then they can get reasonable use without, you know, the interference of that natural outcropping or trees or, you know, whatever it might be, or state changing the right of way, whatever it might be. And it can't be something that they've done. Well, I mean, for example, if I go out there and I dig a big swimming pool and say, now I need to set back to be smaller because that my pool's in the way, well, I did that. So, no, I can't justify a variance if I did that. Anyway.
Can I intervene one thing on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as the actual development, we didn't develop the property. We bought all the lots from the developer. We didn't create the original plan. We just bought what
Well,
was
with all due
approved there.
respect, but you then bought it, and then you had the plans in front of you. And I'm really not trying to take too strong a stance on it. I
Yeah.
really don't even want to do that. But, boy, this really just seems odd under the statute. But on the other hand, I find it strange that we've got a lot that wastes, and I hate to use that word too, but
Well,
that
that's-
wastes
yeah.
that much good land, because the whole point of development is to make full use of the land and not leave orphan pieces or mudslides either, for that matter, but, you know, anyway.
No, we appreciate you speaking up, Charlie. You're a wealth of knowledge all the time, so.
Charlie, I have a question kind of in relation to that. Being that there's no real record of there being a 100-foot landscape barrier, what is your kind of thoughts on needing a variance at all?
Well, let me ask a question before I make an effort at that. When did we take away the 100-foot setback from US 62, period, and from 460, and from 25?
I consulted with
Because that's been on
staff
the books
to,
for 50 years. Or
I even took this in
longer.
Ben Krebs' office. I was like, I need you to help me find this in the subregs or something else.
It was in the dimension and area regulations.
The only thing I found that came anywhere close spoke specifically to the bypass and major intersections.
What is in the bypass? This is 62.
I know, I'm just saying this is the language I did
And
find.
it covered all the way up past, I think, past, what is it, Gunnell, you know, past Oxford. Now, I'm not saying it's still there. I haven't looked at it for ages. But it was there in our original ordinance, and it was there for 20, 30 years afterward. And it may not be there now. I don't recall taking it, you know, when it was taken out. But it was on the, that schedule of area and dimensional regulations in the back of the book. That's the only place it was ever listed.
I found it in our regulations, and you are correct, there is a reference to that in, for properties to have that 100-foot buffer, but it states that in A1, A5, and C1 zones. It makes no determination for the R1C zone.
Didn't remember that, okay.
Yes, so,
Okay.
yes,
Thank
there
you.
is one, but not applicable to this specific zone.
To Mr. Sims' point, so the reason why we even have to consider variance though is because it is on the recorded plat. So as a note on the plat, it would, the assumption is that any development would meet the requirements of said plat. To get a variance, that's why we're in front of the board.
Oh, excuse me, what's your name again, sir?
Darren
Darren
Durham.
Durham? Thank you. I haven't seen the sign-in sheet yet, so I didn't know, okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know what it looks like coming from that direction to see what a house going there is gonna do. But even if we were to deny it, there's still gonna be a house there. Is that still gonna affect visibility anyways on the road? And like you, Charlie, I've driven by there a bunch, but I don't know the perspective from coming off Nuthatch.
Because I'm
So,
sure that decline, probably has some effect. It doesn't look like it does from the road, but I don't know what it looks like coming up out of there at all.
I don't know.
One point, Red had said during his presentation that this was something that apparently was added by, well, not Monroe Homes, but their predecessor. Although I think, is this phase 2?
That's phase 2.
Yeah, because I think,
It was actually put in phase 1, to my understanding.
was it, because I wasn't sure that phase 1 dealt with any of the property outside that small 22 lot or so of phase 1. Anyway, I don't remember, so never mind, ignore that. But if the 100-foot setback doesn't apply for any zone other than A1 and whatnot, then this would in fact have been just something added to the plat that we wouldn't have authority to impose. So, again, that looks like then the original developer or Monroe Homes in phase 2 added that. Don't know why.
Yeah, we didn't add it.
Well, but you didn't add it.
The approved plans were already approved before we came in.
Yeah. Oh, I know, that was done back when we had all that knockdown drag out over, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think we're a little hesitant with I am with the safety portion of being able to see from that road, but we have no idea, like, what that's gonna look like. So I don't,
I come out that every day and tell you what it's going to see sometimes. When I was 17-year-old leaving that neighborhood, I worried for her every second every day. Leaving that neighborhood, and her vision is blocked. Because of it, I don't want a dead child.
I think we're blessed with the visibility we have. I'm just gonna be honest, I think we're blessed with the visibility we have. As soon as we come out and get in parallel with our house, we can see around that corner. Put another house there. Again, you're gonna put a house there anyway, but adding another 18 foot onto that house, that
Yeah.
makes a big difference. It makes a big difference.
Leaving the neighborhood.
I'm wondering if you all could kind of walk through the visibility concerns. So if you're coming out of the trail here, I'm assuming there's a stop sign right there.
So yeah, right at the very top, that's where the curve actually exits. This is actually a downhill slope all the way to the bottom of the neighborhood. But once you come up, you don't actually see the actual road.
so when you're
We're
leaving,
almost
we're
right there.
102.
when you're leaving your house and approaching it, you're going uphill?
We're going
Yes,
uphill.
Uphill,
Alright.
yes.
Coming into the neighborhood's fine. You're always gonna be able to see as far as you can. That's not the issue. It's coming out of the neighborhood. If you build a house right here, like I said, you can't even start to see Cynthia Road. And you put a house in the way, especially the way it sits, you're losing all visibility whatsoever.
I watch the school bus for my kids every morning so I don't sit out in the cold. I lose visibility of the school bus back here while I'm there. So once I lose that visibility from my home to my kids going out in the cold to get on the school bus, what kind of visibility is my child going to have at 17 that is just driving, leaving the neighborhood that I barely can see now? You know, I'm in a little Jeep, she's not. So that's my concern is, do we have to have a dead child before
Understand.
this is an issue?
We're not talking about pulling out onto Main Street. We're not talking about pulling out onto Second Street or Gunnell or any of these other streets. We're actually talking about pulling out onto Cynthiana Road.
Yeah.
And
It's a 65.
people really obey the speed limit coming around that corner.
No, it's
There's semis that come through that scare me.
it's busy, no doubt.
It's definitely, it's a raceway through there.
And yes,
More
it's scary
visibility.
for me sometimes. And my 17-year-old is scared that's gonna pull out. So you put an extra added block that she can't see.
Well, we make her actually go to the other entrance of the neighborhood. So she'll actually go all the way to the other entrance, which is flat, there's no curb.
Before we let her, we don't let her go out that way, just because it can be blocked, it can be blocked. So they wanna add more to my child trying to
Yeah, I
pull out
understand.
of that subdivision. It scares the daylights out of me.
Well,
Mr. Chair, can I ask Mr. Durham a question? Did you say this is gonna be a 3-car garage?
That, what was proposed on there was a 3-car garage.
So if you happen to lose that 3rd car garage, you wouldn't need 18 foot, you'd need 10 feet or 9 feet?
Correct.
I was just wondering if that might be a
Compromise?
compromise.
I love
that
compromise.
might, work in the situation. Because at that point, the encroachment is not really significant, it doesn't seem to be. Again, I'm not looking from their property, but it doesn't seem that significant. He still gets to build the house, just not with
Right,
a
I was just
three-car
trying to,
garage.
the third car is simply to gain additional parking spaces.
No,
for the-
I understand that, and that's oftentimes a premium, so no, I understand that. But anyway, that's just a thought, Mr. Chairman.
So it'd be the biggest house in the neighborhood, on the biggest lot in the neighborhood. Most of those lots are well under
You can go ahead.
0.4 of an acre. So this is almost a 3/4 acre lot with the biggest house in the neighborhood on a corner in the entrance.
Go ahead, Glenn.
So I heard you say that this is gonna be a 3-car garage, and then we was talking about how it's gonna look cosmetically to the rest of the neighborhood. So is this house the same size as all the other houses
Yes.
in?
That footprint, other than the third car garage, is the same footprint as their house.
Okay.
There's nothing larger about it.
Okay.
And there's multiple 3-car garages in the neighborhood.
One
Yeah,
of
but I'm just
four
like,
is a
as far as
3-car
this-
garage.
as far as this lot is concerned.
And if you didn't have the third car garage, a variance of 10 feet would suffice? Is that accurate? I mean, without seeing it, there definitely seems like there's some concerns with,
And I don't know if this is even possible, but I'd love to, like, put out a couple orange flags before this was proposed, and if somebody's gonna go out there and drive it, and see it for themselves.
At the height that it should be.
yeah, it'd be hard to do the height.
But that's where you really lose the visibility, is once you get over the rise of the land. Those are all 2-story plus houses down through there, so.
I'm inclined to, I like the compromise idea. I know that they're gonna build a house there anyways. They probably need a little more room. We're concerned with the safety. Obviously, we don't know exactly what it's gonna look like, but we know the road. So I'm inclined to allow a little bit of variance, but not the max amount. Do you all have any
I mean,
feedback on that?
it does seem like there's, two things at play here. One, that it's being built at all, and as a board, I don't think we can really address
Right.
that part of it. But then the safety concern is, I think we're kind of narrowing more into here. And just kind of going back to this, so we're driving down the trail here, and there's the stop sign where Cynthiana connects. I mean, at that point, you'd be past the development, the proposed development, correct? That you'd be at the stop sign, so there would be, if you're coming to complete stop, there wouldn't be any obstruction into seeing Cynthiana Road completely. Would you agree with that statement?
Well, no, because at the stop sign, you don't have any visibility around that.
You have to go up almost to the road before you can see. So I'm a legit Jeep. I drive a legit Jeep, and I have to go up past the stop sign, like up to the edge, to make sure that there's nothing coming. Because I don't pull out like a bat out of hell. I just don't do that. And there's been times that semis come through there going 75 miles an hour. Because they have all the way to the stop sign, or the red light in Toyota, before they have to brake. And there's been times I've almost gotten hit, because I'm like, I pulled up enough that I have to back up. I have to back up. So I am concerned for the safety, not just me, but my children that are just driving.
Now, without the house, you can see the curve
You
before
can
you
see
get to the
it
stop
better
sign.
now.
So you
But
can
with the house
anticipate
there,
whether or not you're gonna be able to
No.
proceed or not.
They're gonna have dead kids on their hands.
I appreciate just the basic safety considerations for that road as it exists now, regardless if there's a home there or not. And seeing more of an approach as you're coming up to Cynthiana Road, I understand, the value in that. At the same time, you're still coming to a stop sign, correct? So you'd still, regardless if there's development there or not, you should be. And that sounds like an inherent safety problem for the road as it exists right now, regardless if there's a building there or not, at least in my eyes. So to me, I I'm very sympathetic to, what you're saying for the safety concerns. I'm still trying to kind of assess whether that development really makes that worse or not, being that you will have that problem regardless. I know that's a larger conversation, fortunately, something that couldn't be tackled here. But yeah, I'm just not sure how the development significantly impacts that from an already maybe bad situation.
You know, the house will be still 80, the edge of the house will still be 82 feet before you get to the stop sign itself.
I completely understand, but again, that's my sight line to Cynthia Road. That house goes right through the sight line. That's kind of the whole point. Unless you're gonna build an underground house that I can see over the roof line, it doesn't matter. But we're also going by the fact, and I appreciate Mr. Perkins' comments on that. The builder self-imposed this stuff. He took over this plot from Titan Management. That was my understanding, it was Titan who had it before that. They took over all this under full knowledge of what their plats and everything look like. And whether it's in writing or not, I mean, I know it's hearsay and speculation, but dude still told me that it was an undeveloped lot because of that.
I understand.
So, I like Mr. Perkins' point of, are you gonna let them go back on what they said and actually wrote down that everybody approved? Just because now he wants another dollar or what? Again, understand if he builds there, I get it. I can't fight that. But I can fight this developer and I can fight the next developer who comes before you all and try to do the same thing. Just because we changed management companies, we changed name on the house to a different guy. He didn't like the way the first guy set it up. Come on.
So we're good for kids. And they're safe, my safety.
They get this in.
I'm just.
We're done. It's up to y'all. We didn't want
Gotcha.
this to be a big thing.
Yeah.
We just want our voices heard.
Yes, no, we appreciate it, absolutely. Does anybody want to make an official motion? I would like to make a motion that, I don't know if this is approval or denial, Charlie, but I like the compromise route in a situation like this, I do. So I don't know if we can approve it, but without the third car garage, or if we have to make it specific to 10 or 12 feet to try to curtail with the safety concerns.
I think we need the footage. So if he said he could do this with 10, then if that's agreeable with the board, then I'd make that the motion.
Okay, if that's the correct number.
I believe that's what he said. Oh.
Go ahead.
If to make this a little more clear and that way more concrete, you all are also more than welcome to continue this application until such time a alternative footprint is presented.
Okay.
Maybe a little more information is gathered about the safety concerns.
Okay.
And then instead of, that way it shields you all, I'm not telling you what to do.
No, I appreciate it.
But it shields you from maybe making an arbitrary decision on the
Sure.
distance of variance.
And I don't want it to be perceived that we're passing the buck or anything, but we want to make sure we're doing due diligence and doing a correct thought process with what we have in front of us. So I'm very acceptable to that. So thank you. Yes, if we can do that, again, I don't know if it has to be a official approval or denial, but
I've always said the chair can do that just on his or her own. And I've always had chairs who didn't really like doing that on his or her own. So how about we just ask for a motion to continue to next month to allow for some of these measurements to be verified?
to try to get a smaller variance requested.
Well, just to verify the distances, whether that includes sight lines,
Okay.
Whatever it might be. And then to come back with, what
Okay.
is essential to it, not necessarily over and above.
Okay.
Is there anything that we can add on to that?
You can add on whatever the board.
Well, I'm just
wishes to add on to
saying, our public health system does a windshield survey. And they basically go out and look and see things in the community and the environment, stuff like that. I have to tell you, I'm a little discouraged that you don't have more of a HOA presence here. So that is concerning that they're not bringing it up as well. But like I said earlier, I hear a lot of problems that could be solved with communication because they took over something that, they didn't make a promise to you. And I would like to see, I know for me, because no matter what we compromise here, for me, it'll still be a no until the new builders at least start talking to you some. I built a fence in my backyard. I had to talk to my next door neighbor on both sides. All right, I understand that that property is owned by the builder, but we're talking about something that's gonna impact certain things. That's just being common and courteous and things like that. But that's my vote. That's not anybody else on this board. But for me, that's something I would feel more comfortable with, is they just talk to each other more.
May I say one thing, that this time of year, you have more visibility than you do in summer when all the trees are in bloom
Right.
and in full, and
For sure.
you can't see above the bushes and the shrubs and the trees. In summer and spring, it's harder to see than it is right now.
Sure.
Because the trees are bare.
Sure,
So your
absolutely.
visibility is a little bit better right now than it is in spring and summer. In spring and summer, when those trees are full in bloom, you can't see a thing.
Right. Did you have something, Frank?
Oh, perhaps, Mr. Chairman, to be a little more specific on that motion you're
Yeah.
thinking about,
For sure.
is to verify the distances needed for a two-car garage.
Okay.
Because I really think the consensus seems to be that 3 cars really not gonna be part of the question come next month.
Okay. So would you be able to read back what we're,
Well, what I penciled in is just simply to continue to next month to allow verification of distances needed for a 2-car garage. Or
Okay.
actually, that house plan, but with a 2-car garage.
okay. Okay, I'll make a motion, for that. Okay.
Frank?
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll go that route. And we'll, revisit it next month.
We get a letter before next month's meeting.
We will re-notify.
Okay.
Everybody that
Re-notifications,
received a
yes.
letter this go-round will receive one again.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Darren. You're welcome. Go ahead, Rhett.
Okay. Now for something completely different. Okay, our second application of the year and evening is at 321 Bourbon Street, is a conditional use permit. It's a conditional use permit request to operate an emergency shelter at the aforementioned address. It is in an R2 medium density residential zone, just under a quarter acre on Bourbon Street off East Main. Overall, staff recommends approval.
Oh, and before you keep going, I gotta do this before. I'm on the board for the Gathering Place mission, so I will not be voting or making any comments except for the purposes of moving along the meeting. So, just wanted to make that clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is the property in question. Again, currently residential use. Confirming the zone again. Conditional use permits are just that. They're permits for use that may or may not be explicit in the zone. And in our conditional use section of our ordinance, it does list philanthropic institutions as a conditional use in residential zones. Staff has found that this proposal most closely fits this described use. The applicant also does have other establishments of similar nature under conditional use within the nearby area. They have stated the shelter will be used on an as-needed basis, particularly during inclement weather. However, they have stated that it could get year-round use as needed, depending on the changing needs of their organization and those they serve. The capacity of the shelter at this time is 14 people, as stated by the applicant. And again, they do have pre-existing conditional use permits to operate similar facilities. Most recently, there was one approved in 2023 at 339 Bourbon Street. I just pulled some explanation and verbiage and pictures from the applicant's website. Again, they have a long-standing history in the community of outreach and service to those in need. They do operate emergency night shelters and full-time shelters, things of that nature as well in the community. And again, just some more, just to kind of clue you in on what they do and how they do it. The applicant states that over 4,000 people last year sought an emergency shelter. And so it's obvious that there is a need for this in the community. Again, just to summarize it, we're just under a quarter acre in an R2 zone off Bourbon Street. Our zoning ordinance lists philanthropic institutions as a conditional use in all residential districts. We have found that this proposal most closely matches this purpose. and the approval of the conditional use permit will not adversely impact the public, health, safety, or welfare, nor alter the character of the general vicinity.
Any questions for Rhett?
Just standard conditional use permit conditions of approval. Just to kind of elaborate that on for everybody else and our new folks, specifically with conditional use permits, they're only valid up until the property is sold. So say if this were even to be undertaken by maybe another nonprofit, if the property were to change hands at all, they would have to reapply. If the use were to be expanded beyond what they have currently applied for or receive approval, they will also have to revisit us. Essentially, any change in the conditions that they have explained to us, anything changes, they have to let us know for reconsideration of continuance or expansion.
Okay.
Mr. Shirley,
Yes.
was it our intent to have a condition to limit the capacity to 14 residents as the applicants requested?
I did not, that was not necessarily my intention. I was going to let the applicant speak to it. We can be more than glad to add it to if staff or the board feels it's appropriate. But I was just
Okay.
stating the information I was given.
Okay. And I think we have someone to speak. Go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Travis Campbell. I recently inherited the property adjoining to 321, 319 Bourbon Street. It was my grandmother's property. She's had it in our family for 30 plus years. I love the gathering place. The gathering place has helped my grandmother out numerous times with different things, meals. I'm not against this thing next door at all, really, but I'm kind of have some concerns about how many people are going to be there, if someone's going to be supervised. I already have trouble, if anybody here is familiar with the area, there's riffraff across the street, down the street. Anyways, I kind of feel like some of that is from the gathering place, because it's so much traffic back and forth through there. They're coming from different areas all the time. I pull up, I live in Nicholsville, don't stay in that house all the time, but when I pull up sometimes in the afternoons, there's people sitting all out in front of my yard, on my walkway, on my stairs. And I'm like, and these are people that are coming from a gathering place that is down the street before y'all opened up the place next door. So this kind of where it has concerns for me, what it's going to do to my property, the value of my home. Just have some concerns with it all together.
What's the address to your property?
319. And again, the gathering place has been so good to my family. And I don't want to put anything to try to, but at the same time, I have to look out for my family as well. I just have some concerns.
Sure. Do you guys want to go ahead?
My name is Heather Johnson. I'm the director of the Gathering Place, and we certainly do love your family as well.
Yes, I do. I thank you all.
We love his grandmother, and the whole family has been delightful. And so, if I forget any concerns, please interrupt me. So, on our street is not just the Gathering Place that has units. There is a sober living that is directly across from 321, and I think what you're referring to, the riffraff, is a known. Just call it what it is, drug house on our street. It is not only known by us, but by law enforcement as well. And so our intent is to keep people from going to that house. So by purchasing this extra space, we're trying to meet the needs of the community. And when they can't find a need, they do double up. And a lot of times it is at that location, to be totally honest with you, and this is a known fact. And so our intent, the number 14 is what we're assessing we could put in there, but we actually consult the fire marshal and have an assessment done as we did with our other properties. And so that we will do the same thing. We practice being a good neighbor, and we hope to continue that. And I hope the evidence is that we only have a concern, one concerned neighbor and not people speaking out. What else could I address?
Well, no, I just is there some people gonna be there? Is it gonna be monitored?
Oh, yes, so we have supervisors there, and as we do in all of our properties, we don't just allow people to come in. We have what's called a peer supervisor, and they're people who have demonstrated leadership, they have house keys, they're responsible, and that's how we run our mission in our off hours from the office. Plus, I live around the corner. And so I can be there in moments as needed, but we're great friends with GPD as needed as well, and we do run a tight ship because that's how it has to run. So our intent is to be an excellent neighbor. Like I said, we love Mrs. Hayden,
I'm not coming to go against
I know,
you guys.
and I don't feel that.
I just want some clarity,
No,
some
I'm happy
clarification
to.
on what was going on,
Absolutely.
exactly what was going on.
Absolutely. Our immediate need will be, in speaking to Mr. Shirley, our immediate need would be for a single women's shelter. And so we wanted the flexibility to change as needed because things do change with the season. Sometimes it's more men, sometimes it's families, sometimes it's more women. Right now, the immediate need is women. They are staying in the emergency shelter at our other house, which is 346, directly across from our 339 house. And so to make a little bit more space in that house, that was what drove us to purchase 321. And it is just 3 doors down from us. And so we have easy access. We're there, can be there immediately. And our desire is to try to get ahead and meet the need of our community, to keep more people off the street, hanging out, going to places they shouldn't go.
I had a couple questions. So as far as your kind of current capacity, are you having to turn people away, or is this more of like knowing that if you increase the capacity, then that might meet some
We
unrealized
have had to
demand
turn
there?
single women away
Okay.
this winter to try to find other shelters for them, yes, and some families as well.
Okay.
The male capacity, we've stretched, and this is with the approval of the fire marshal, so it's not it is common knowledge, but we've had to stretch into our office and start using that as part of a sleeping shelter as well. And so, yes, we need the space desperately, and, we'll need more, but are hoping to build something somewhere.
Okay. There's also a point in here saying that the applicant has stated that round use of the shelter, round year use of the shelter is likely depending on the changing needs of the organization.
Mhm.
Is that mainly speaking to if there's increased need for it, just needing more capacity, that could be used more, or are there other more specific plans that you would envision with this property?
I think it would be with the needed capacity. So previous in our years of operation, we have operated a white flag shelter in conjunction with EMA. And so we are seeing that with the changing culture of the unhoused, there is a more immediate night-by-night need, and so we've started to adjust our operation to accommodate that need, because our desire is not to have people drive through our town and see people hanging out everywhere. Our desire is that these people hanging out would have a safe shelter to go to where they're going to receive case management and help to get back on their feet.
Sorry, one more question.
Hey,
So,
that's all good.
So we have currently 14 people is kind of the estimate. If the fire marshal says less or more, you would just kind
We
of
adjust.
whatever that
Mhm.
adjustment would
Yeah.
be. Okay.
We have to go with his plan because our ultimate goal is safety.
Okay.
I don't want to house a bunch of people and then we have a problem and that's on me.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for these people and I care for them. And so we will do whatever he says.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So to kind of address what the gentleman was saying,
Mhm.
is there certain hours that they come there, that they can come, instead of them just kind of gathering out there and just kind of hovering? That, like I know in Lexington, some places you have to be there by 6 o'clock, and you can't just be dawdling around.
That is correct. So we operate 2 different ways. To answer your question specifically about check-in hours, so we do our intakes on our emergency shelter between 5 and 8 p.m. And we don't allow hovering and hanging around the property in other times because we demand that there's a supervisor on site when people are in our property, on our property. And we police that ourselves, like we make sure, because I just don't find that to be appropriate. In our other shelters that are operated on 339 and 346, We run a different type, more transitional type of a shelter, and those people actually live there, and you don't see them out unless they're out enjoying the sun or something, because they live there. That could be what happens in the future, but they won't be milling around. That's not our intent, and I think probably a lot of, this would be a guess, an assumption, but I think a lot of what he's seeing are the people that are entering, going in and out of 320 across the street. Because you have a couple houses there that are doing some activity they shouldn't be, and then you have a lady sober living.
Well, not always, because some of the people that, again, they go down and get their meals, and they'll come out and they'll eat all the stew, which isn't a big deal, if they keep it moving, you know?
Yeah.
And, but I just don't want it to become a habit, like, sometimes you go, I've had calls, my grandmother called, like, when I was staying in Nicholasville, she'd call and say, hey, the yard is full of beer cans in the front, or full of this, that, and the other. And I just worried that the traffic, that the more things that we add like that onto Bourbon Street, the traffic, it draws the traffic in. And it's just, whether they're going down there or not, there are people who are attracted to that stuff, you know, to the free food and they know that there are people who out there who need shelter, and they might want to come there to sell their drugs to them people, because it's that type of an area now. And I don't want it to become that type of area because of all the things that we have going on, you know.
Which I agree, and I understand your concern, but I will address it too. That area already exists, and it doesn't exist because of us.
Yeah.
So we have a very extensive video camera system on site. In fact, it is on my phone right now, so we are constantly monitoring. We have those peer supervisors. We have 4 that are employed and active at all times, and they are keeping watch. We also have a huge volunteer base that is serving the food and that kind of thing, and we are a drug and alcohol-free facility, and I make sure of that because a lot of our people are in recovery. And so we do have that kind of thing, and that is always something I have to be aware of because I'm trying to protect our people who are in recovery, but it's from across the street. And I work to make sure that our police officers know that, and every chance I get, I share that publicly because I want it to stop. But that is actually a promise I can make you. I am always working to make sure we are completely drug and alcohol free. We, check everybody when they come in. We go through their bags, their property, and we drug test. And if they are caught to be using a substance, then I require that they go to a facility for help, a rehabilitation facility. That is very important to me because I don't think we can address just providing a bed as a shelter unless we address the whole person.
What was your name again?
Heather Johnson.
Any other questions for anybody?
I have one. The gentleman about your name again, sir?
Travis Campbell.
Travis Campbell.
Yes.
And somebody will have to make a motion.
I will make a motion to approve.
A second.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And yet, thank you guys. Thank you guys for being good neighbors. Keep that up. I love it. Keep the communication going.
Yeah, they got a whole lot better communication than the last group.
Anything else from you guys?
I would like to take on work real quick.
Go ahead, absolutely.
To the existing members, the new members, as you saw tonight, very important work in front of you this year. We'd like to thank you for your time, for coming in. It's a lot to deal with. And so this is just a reminder that our office is always open. In advance of a case, if you ever have questions, you can always come in. You can talk to the planner who's responsible for that case. You can ask as many questions as you want. The important thing is that you guys feel like you have the information necessary to make these important decisions, realizing that as we saw tonight, the decisions made here have direct impacts on the community that you guys have volunteered to serve. And so we'd like to thank you guys. We're looking forward to a great couple of years. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. Okay. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned. Appreciate it. Charlie. Oh, Mr. Campbell? Do you want,
Before you go, can I stop you just
do
a
you need me
second?
to date this on these?